Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the November 20th, 2024 meeting of the Murfreesboro Planning Commission. We'll call our meeting to order. We do have a quorum present today. We did not have any public comments registered. So our first item of business will be to approve the minutes of the October 30th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting, which we had a chance to review prior to the meeting. So if anybody had any additions, corrections, please let us know. And if not, we're ready for a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second on the minutes. And we have Ms. Ashley Fulgham with us today to help out. Thank you so much. You want to call roll?
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Prince? Aye. Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Chair Jones?
Aye. Okay. Our next item will be the consent agenda, and likewise, we reviewed that ahead of time. If anybody would like to have any of these items removed for further discussion, please let us know. And otherwise, we'll be ready for a motion on the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Fulgham?
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Prince? Aye. Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Chair Jones?
Aye. Okay, consent agenda passes. So next we are moving on to GDO items. Let's see, we have three.
We apologize for the technical difficulties. Our cable department is looking into that right now.
Okay.
I don't know what y'all are seeing on your screens. It looks like nothing.
Nothing.
Well, that's helpful,
Not
isn't
even
it?
those pretty stripes up there. We've just got the blinking screen. You want us to go ahead?
And their screens are blank up there as well.
Try to restart it. It'll mess you up.
While he's working on that, I'll go ahead and read the first item that we're, looky there, how quick that was. Thank you. Our first item that we'll have on the GDO portion of the agenda is Fortress Square, Lot 3, and first re-subdivision of Lot 2. It's final plat for 2 lots on 10.67 acres, zoned CH and GDO 1, located along Fortress Boulevard and John R. Rice Boulevard. Randall Fortress Partners, LLC, is the developer. Mr. Barbie, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair Jones and members of the Planning Commission. This first item on your GDO agenda this afternoon is a final plat for Fortress Square Lot 3. This is a final plat for 2 lots on 10.67 acres on CH and GDO 1. Staff has reviewed this plat and is generally in good order. Staff would request that any approval be made subject to staff comments.
Y'all bear with me. I'm having to pull up the exhibits because that computer is rebooting. So I'll get that to where you can see. Okay, it's back up. Brad, the agenda should be under Planning Commission, November 20th. Good. There you go.
Yes, yes, we are. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, looks like we're back up and running there. So get down. Is this the right one?
We want to get to 6A. That was 5A.
The mouse is very touchy. 5C. And that doesn't
It
work.
starts on page like 158, 157, 156 of the agenda.
Unfortunately,
I think it's the next one after this, Brad.
Okay.
There we go.
Brad, if you could page down to the plat as well.
There it goes.
So like we said, this is Lot 3, first re-subdivision of Lot 2. Final plat for 2 lots on 10.67 acres. Did anybody have any questions or comments regarding this re-subdivision?
None for me. I'll move for approval, subject to all staff comments.
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Bullinger?
Ms. Averwater,
Aye.
Mr. Carroll,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Prince, Mr. Wright,
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton,
Aye.
Chair Jones.
Aye. Okay, thank you. So item B is Clary Park, Lot 18 townhomes. It's an initial design review for 80 townhomes on 8.06 acres, zoned PUD and GDO1, located along Robbie Corlew Lane and Robert Rose Drive. Hines Clary Park Land Holdings, LLC is the developer. Mr. Barbie.
Good afternoon again. As you stated, this is the initial design review for Clary Park Lot 18 townhomes. I did want to point out that there is an error in the staff report. The paragraph under the header identifies this as the final design review, and that should have read initial design review. As this is initial design review, most of the focus of this was on architecture. Staff reviewed the architecture that was submitted and compared it with what Planning Commission and City Council previously approved under the most recent rezoning for the Clary Park PUD, and found that those elevations were identical. We do have sample boards today of the building materials that I have to pass around.
Testing our strength here this afternoon.
Pass this thing.
And as an update, the zoning amendment for this architecture passed second and final reading at City Council at last week's meeting.
So as you can see, the primary building material is brick. Secondary is some masonry siding. That you will, there is a little bit of vinyl used in the trim and windows, but otherwise this is identical to what was proposed, or this is identical to what was proposed and shown during the zoning book. I believe Mr. Matt Taylor with SEC is also in the crowd with us today, and I believe Matt has a brief presentation as well.
Okay.
Thank you all. I'm Matt Taylor of SEC. I've got Mr. Thomas Welch with me as well from Hines. I don't have a formal presentation. I think Brad's right. I mean, this matches exactly what was in the most recent PUD amendment. We spent a lot of time with staff getting a lot of detail during that amendment, so we're able to roll that straight into this set of plans. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you got about the architecture or the site itself.
Okay, any questions?
If there are none, I'll make a motion to approve, subject to all staff comments.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Fulton?
Ms. Saberwater? Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Harris? Mr. Prince? Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Chair Jones?
Aye. Okay. Next, our item C is the Hawaiian Brothers initial design review for a 2,734 square foot restaurant on 1.77 acres located along Medical Center Parkway and Willow Oak Trail. Sequoia Hospitality LLC is the developer. Mr. Barbie.
Good afternoon again. This presentation, or this submittal before you today is for Hawaiian Bros. This is the initial design review. As with the previous staff report, there's an error stating this is final design review. However, it is the initial design review for this project. That's for a 2,734 square foot restaurant on 1.77 acres at the intersection of Medical Center Parkway and Willow Oak Trail. As this is initial design review, again, we are focused more on the building architecture and materials. At this point, elevations, colorized elevations are before you now, and I have a material sample board for your review as well. Most of the elevations you see here are in compliance with our Gateway Design Overlay standards. We do need to work with the applicant a little bit in addition on the facade that faces Medical Center Parkway with the amount of cementitious siding or EIFS that's shown on that side. The percentages seem to exceed what we would normally see for a primary or for a secondary building material on that facade. But otherwise, this application is generally in good order. I believe we also have a representative from Hawaiian Bros with us today, and I believe he has a presentation also prepared.
Good afternoon all. I'm Jonathan Dahl from Excel Engineering. So we've been working diligently with the city to vamp the Hawaiian Brothers brand with also your city standards with revising some of the brick colors and adding additional glazing to the facades to meet all the city requirements and put our best foot forward, kind of match your design criteria for the city. And then just in general working with Brad to make sure everything is up to date and per city codes. And we'll work with Brad going forward with reducing the EIFS on the facade for the secondary material.
What is the, so the screen, yeah, what's up on the screen, the middle picture, the item on the left, what's under that awning? What is that?
The marble-looking thing? What do you?
Yeah,
Right
there.
here?
Yeah.
So those are like a decorative metal screen. So being that we have the drive-through that kind of runs through there, we put up there's usually a decorative metal screen because there's the patio to screen the patio customers from the cars going past in the drive-through.
So there's a drive, okay.
So it's a decorative metal panel.
Who's the planner on this? Brad, is this you again? Brad? Yes. I know recently last year we had issue with some bright colors being used in the GDO. What is your thoughts on the bright colors?
I think that is a bright color. That's been part of our conversation with the architect and with the restaurant owner, is to try to reduce that as much as possible. This has been reduced greatly over what the initial submittal we received was. The EIFS on that front facade that you're seeing in this image here, I don't know if you can see the mouse. Well, we don't have the touch screen anymore.
Can you zoom in a little bit on that, Brad?
I can try.
I think you'll have to hit escape and then...
That's been one of my concerns with this elevation. The EIFS, which is a secondary material, constitutes 52% of the surface on this elevation. And it's also a very bright, vibrant color, which our design guidelines try to discourage as being a principal facade use. I feel like this area needs to be reduced. The color itself, if you reduce that surface area, I think that will help some of it. And from what I understand, this blue color, is this a part of the corporate branding still?
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's the corporate color.
I agree. It's just extremely bright, and that is the facade facing Medical Center Parkway, and there's a lot of it. I just wonder if there's a way to use that as more of an accent color in the, branding as opposed to the whole background color.
What do your corporate restrictions say as far as that goes?
So the push is always as much as of that aquarium color, because that is their core brand color, as possible. So they always want it on their front facade facing the main drive in front of them, or on the front of their building, to really indicate this is our entrance to the restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sympathetic to branding, I really am. I know that color is important to you guys, but I'm looking at the Hawaiian Bros in Kansas City and in Waco, Texas, in Tucson, Arizona, and there's significantly less vibrant colors on those buildings. It's much more the neutral tones, which is what we like to see in that Gateway District. So I would ask that you guys take another swing at it and reduce some of that blue, particularly the side that faces Medical Center.
And I think we would have the opportunity to, because there's the brick on the lower portion of the building, to raise that brick up and make that EPA banding smaller and just nearer to the top of the building.
Ms. Overwater, do they use the accent blue on those that you're looking at, or is it all neutral colors?
On one in Tucson, everything is neutral except this blue, the awning itself is blue, so it's maybe, 40 square feet of blue.
Yeah, substantial.
It's a substantial reduction in these ones I'm looking at.
Looks more like the elevation that we're looking at on Robbie Corlew Lane.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think we're maybe leaning more towards that on Medical Center Parkway.
So only allowing that blue where there be the canopy.
I think what Ms. Overwater is saying is look at your stores that she named and have it come back and look at something like one of those.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the Tucson location, actually. I worked on that project as well. And I know there's some certain city restrictions that reduce that blue further on that project as well.
You're just lucky I'm not saying anything about the giant pineapple. I'm going to leave the pineapple alone. That's a big pineapple, but okay.
There's the pineapple.
It's not a horse, so.
Yeah.
It's a giant pineapple.
And if the planning commission if the applicant is amenable to making those changes, the planning commission will see this again at final design review. If you're comfortable conditioning initial design review on him making those changes by his final design review appearance at the planning commission.
So moved.
Wait, I haven't looked at queuing or parking. Can we do that again at final, or is that
Pull
here?
back.
No, so it's appropriate to look at it here and at final. So Mr. Barbie can pull up the site plan.
I'm sorry, yeah, the packet is so big today, my computer keeps freezing. I'm struggling to get to the queue spaces.
And while he's getting there, if I can just ask, on that east elevation, where it has, we've got the big pineapple over to the left, and then I guess it's like a mural type.
Yeah, so it's like what we call as a wave graphic.
I
So
wondered
it's
if it was just the waves. Okay.
Yeah. So
And
it's
just solid, I mean, it just stays there. This is not a
Correct.
rotating
It's-
screen or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, it's produced and stands off the buildings, and it's like standoffs, but it never changes. It's not like it's going to be revolving different murals, every 6 months or anything like that. It's
Okay.
the same graphic that's always on the building.
It's very difficult to see. Well, that was pointless.
And so you're mostly a drive-through or pickup type restaurant, is
Correct,
that
yes.
correct?
Yeah, it's approximately 75% of the business will end up going either through the online order lane, which is more meant for like DoorDash, or if you mobile order via your phone, you can go through that lane to speed up the process, or the drive-through lane.
Ms. Overwater, you can see the queuing spaces shown. This particular location has two different types of drive-throughs. Your regular drive-through that we're all familiar with is the one on the outside that I'm trying to show here. It does have the 10 queuing spaces. The one on the interior of the site also has queuing spaces as well. That is the line that's used for DoorDash, Uber Eats. The online ordering and pickup line is separated from your regular drive-through customers.
Okay.
And I wonder how many customers, I mean, do you get that like end up, since that's like, I think, a new concept for us, what if they end up in that drive-through line thinking they're going to place an order and pick it up there so they can get out and go around in that space we're looking at there and then go, do they have a way to go get in the regular drive-through line? That's a pretty
Yeah,
sharp
so if you were
U-turn
to-
right there.
If you were to, I mean, we do a lot of site signage to make sure it's very clear of which lanes what lane you should be going in. But yeah, if you were to exit the online order drive-through lane, you could hang a left and go into the typical drive-through lane.
Just
If you have a
circle
very,
around.
yeah, you'd have to circle all the way around, I think.
Does this have a left out onto Medical Center? Is that a left out onto Medical?
Are you looking,
Right there?
yeah, I believe that's a right in, right out only. Yeah,
reflected?
there's a center median there.
There's a median that prevents you from...
So it's self-regulating.
Okay. Okay. I mean, it doesn't appear that a backup in the drive-through is going to block Medical Center, and hopefully not Robbie Corlew either, so. Yeah, that's smart. Okay, I'm fine with queue spaces then.
Yeah, it really helps speed up their process, because then anyone that's like DoorDash, I mean, they're at that window for less than 30 seconds. It's basically, here's your food, thank you for ordering food, and they're out of the way, and it helps speed up the drive-through tremendously.
Yeah, I think the DoorDash and the Uber, that makes sense. It's the other people that are going in to pick up their order if they called it in or whatever. Be more confusing. But anyway, great idea.
Going back to the building, Jamie, I guess I was wanting to be clear on our thoughts. Are we wanting less blue facing Medical? So that would be the,
Which is where they have the most blue facing now, that top right photo, yeah.
yeah.
I was thinking this graphic that's on, it's page 194 of this one,
It's a lot of
and
blue.
this one, Reggie.
Yeah, I've got it pulled.
You know, I was thinking if they, just the whole top and really just the awning, it should be blue and all of that, because the part that faces Medical Center as well as the sides of that, just that top section doesn't, I don't think we would be happy with the blue up there. Just the blue on the awnings.
I don't know where Shawnee is, but that's pretty. Less blue.
Yeah?
It's outside of St. Louis. Or Kansas City, not St. Louis, sorry.
Well, I'm fine with seeing it again at
Final.
final, yeah, no problem here.
Is that a motion?
It's a motion to approve, subject to all staff comments, and work on the blue.
Blue. Second.
Note it.
Okay. Motion and a second, Ms. Fulton.
Ms. Overwater?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Harris? Mr. Prince? Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Chair Jones?
Aye. Okay.
It is blue.
Next, section 7 is our plats and plans. 4 items here today. First one is Blackman Plaza, Phase 1. It's a site plan for a 74,000 square foot, 3-story self-storage facility and 2 multi-tenant retail buildings totaling 15,000 square feet on 9.32 acres, zoned commercial fringe, located along Veterans Parkway. Veterans Plaza LLC is the developer. Mr. Barbie.
Good afternoon again, Chair Jones and Murfreesboro Planning Commission members. This application before you is a site plan for 1 3-story self-service storage facility to 1-story retail buildings on 9.32 acres, zoned commercial fringe. This application did go, the adjoining BZA application did go before the Board of Zoning Appeals on August 21st and did receive the required special use permit for a self-service storage facility. Looking at the site, scroll down, we've got our building elevations for the retail buildings. Principal building materials for these are also brick. If I get back, the 3-story self-service storage facility itself is centrally located on the property, and I apologize for flipping back and forth. That mouse is extremely touchy. As a part of this Phase 1 construction, it will be the center 3-story building and these 2 retail structures. Not included is a previously approved, or a structure that received a previous special use permit from the Board of Zoning Appeals, is a 1-story self-service storage facility in the eastern portion of the property. It received an amended special use permit in June of 2023, but that is not a part of this current application. So we're currently looking at the 3-story building and the 2 1-story buildings. They have provided vegetative buffers along your northern property line beyond the extent of where the 3-story building falls. They've also shown buffers along the southern property line against the residential property to the south. Generally, the site plan is in good order. Staff would like to request that any approval be made subject to staff comments, and I'm available if you have any questions.
I'll make a comment as a member of the BZA. We work with this client to do our best to place this building so that it would not be as encroaching on the existing neighbors and then the neighbors that would be coming to the south at one point in time. And these folks were willing to work with us to accomplish that.
Originally, when they went to the Board of Zoning Appeals, the building was much closer to the north property line, which borders the Cloister subdivision, and they slid that building significantly off that northern property line to lessen the impact on the adjacent homeowners to the north.
Can I just ask, just information purposes, so the building that was approved last year, is it already under construction? And
No, ma'am. We have not received a site plan review request or a site plan submittal for the 1-story building that's on the eastern side. That building was a little over 55,000 square feet, but we have not received a submittal for Planning Commission review for that at this date.
So I was just interested when we get to that one, so I'll go ahead and state it. Why the landscaping, stopped for, the lots 13, 14, 15, 16 back there. But anyway, we're not dealing with that today, but I'll just mention when it comes back for that building.
Typically, we don't ask for buffers adjacent to future development areas because they tend to get heavily damaged or even removed with the future construction. However, that is something that's under your purview if you would like to see that.
Well, but that's on the other.
Correct.
We've already approved that.
You
It's going to come
haven't
back.
seen the site plan for that.
It's going to come back at site plan. So that's
Yes.
what I was just stating. When it comes at site plan, I would suggest hopefully they'll have that buffering in there.
Definitely.
And that'll be a minimum requirement that they'll have to meet, so
Okay.
we'll certainly be looking out for that.
Thank you. And good job, BCA, pushing the building back, doing what you could there. Any other questions or comments? This site plan.
If there is none, I'll make a motion we approve, subject to all staff comments.
Second.
Motion and a second, Ms. Fulgham.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
All right.
Mr. Prince? Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Chair Jones?
Aye. Okay, then, item B, we have Project Keystone WGNS site plan for 4,348 square foot building on 1.05 acres on PUD. It's located along East Sevier Street and South Church Street, HRP residential developer. Ms. Smith, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair Jones, Commission. This particular project, we would normally have done administratively, but we know that the community is very interested in where we're going with our project Keystone, and this is kind of phase one, the WGNS building that needs to be relocated before other demolition and other phases of the project can come through. Yesterday afternoon, staff received some updated architectural and civil plans that we have not fully been able to digest, so we would want to have our initial staff comments still in place. And if you'll notice, though, I wanted to point out some of the improvements that will come along with that phase one. So the first one, looking at your screen, is the shaded area here, which is the WGNS property, that they will actually have a separate parcel for that piece. They'll construct the first and second floors of that building. There is a elevator shaft building that they will construct as well. The sidewalk along Sevier will be constructed with this phase of the project. You can see there's 5 parking spaces here along Sevier Street that will also be constructed. Their trash enclosure and their transformer. So those will all be part of phase one of the initial project, and what you're seeing there on the site plan layout is the remainder of the building that will come to you under a separate site plan review. WGNS's location will actually be, and you're right, Brad, this is a very touchy mouse. The WGNS access will come from the ground floor off of Church Street. You can see this staircase that comes up from the front of the building, and then WGNS will occupy this whole second floor portion of the building, and then retail uses will be directly underneath that. With the full build out of the whole site, there will actually be surface parking on ground floor level, and then 3 floors above that for various residential type uses as part of the development agreement with the project. Here you can kind of see, and staff has not really reviewed this other component of the building, but focusing on just the WGNS corner site, this is that separate doorway entry for WGNS, entryway into the retail space. Still does need some work on their project, and then this is basically the building area that would be built along Sevier. So again, a second retail store access here, and then here's that elevator shaft. So the challenge here, and it might be difficult to see in these other drawings here, is what I would call unfinished sides. So because there'll be an elevator shaft that will become part of the building interior, you don't want to put all kinds of brick on that facade just to have it all covered up. So staff does want to make sure we have the appropriate language, which in the development agreement, I think we have, the flexibility to make sure that if something were to go awry and they don't build the rest of the building, that we do get some of those finished sides. But the intent is, as soon as WGNS moves in, they'll start construction on the rest of the building, if all goes well and to their planning. They did bring
So Holly, what is the to the left, what is
So
that?
this is the elevator
Right.
shaft.
But what's next to it?
So this is the interior foyer.
Well, I'm talking about, these look,
On the back side?
Yeah.
That will be a continuation of the building behind it. So that's why I'm saying it's really hard to see, because this
Okay.
is trying to get you just a portion. So this back
I
wall
see
will
it
be
now.
the next phase of the project. So
Okay.
sorry. the next phase of the project, so it just gives you an idea of context.
I
So you
see.
can kind of see this foyer becomes interior space, but day one, you'll see this tower feature with no cornice, no specifics on it, no brick facade, all of those components, but the portions that aren't having additions added to them, like the front face of the WGNS, will be the final finished product portions, but you can kind of see here from the side. So this would be if you're looking at it from the east side of the building. Here's that front face of that WGNS building. This will become that interior hallway that will tie to a elevator that gets built with phase 2. So this is a hardy type of material, and then this is, I think, a CMU block type material, because those will be added on to the building. But we wanted to be able to bring you those components, and really when you're looking at the color palette on the building on the front side, the lighter color stone here is what you saw on that building attributes, so you'll have a stone look and then you'll have another brick layering. And so staff wants to make sure to finish going through this with a fine-tooth comb. And so there is a condition that says architectural elevations will be subject to final review and approval by city administration and the planning department, and shall be compliant with the PUD zoning and the terms of the development agreement. So we wanted to make sure that staff had adequate time, but we wanted to bring this before you for your consideration so that you were aware of the project moving forward.
And I think there are some moving parts, as Ms. Smith mentioned, and there are a number of comments, and we haven't had a whole lot of time to review the revised plans that came in. But knowing the importance of this project and this kind of being the first step in this project moving forward, we wanted to get this before y'all as soon as possible, and we feel that we can continue to work with the applicant prior to permits to make sure all the outstanding comments are addressed.
And that does, thank you for reminding me, Matthew, so that does really trying to keep this on timing with their development agreement. And so they have some pretty tight performance measures of when certain phases of the project need to be in place. And so if this project was delayed another month or 2 months, that would delay the entirety of the project.
Okay. Any other questions or comments regarding this site plan?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
Motion to approve, subject to
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Fulton?
Ms. Saperwater?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
All right,
Mr. Prince?
have it here.
Mr. Wright?
Abstain.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Chair Jones?
Aye. Okay. Then next, our item C is Scooter's Coffee. It's a site plan for a 664-foot square foot drive-through coffee kiosk on 0.76 acres, zoned light industrial, located along South Church Street. The OGSG Coffee LLC is the developer. Ms. Smith?
Thank you again, Chair Jones. As you can see on the aerial above, this particular site is located on South Church Street, just north of the on-ramps to Highway 24, and has a frontage road as well as Church Street in the front of the building. This particular site is a very small kiosk building. You may be asking, why are we bringing it to you? I think we've seen that you really want to see all drive-throughs of various sorts, so that's one of the reasons why we're bringing it before you. As you can see here on the site plan, they show the individual cars and the queue lanes, and they're really providing kind of two two different lanes. The one on the outside shows as a future one, but I think it's the same idea or concept that you heard of the one earlier, that it might be online or some other pickup purpose, but they only do coffee. So they do have at least 14 car queue in their main queue lane, and then a potential 3 additional ones at the future point. With their particular project, we are asking that they provide sidewalk connectivity out through their site and back out to Church Street. I guess if you've seen it, a lot of people actually have worn a path that goes down Church Street. So this new sidewalk will start to provide some of that pedestrian connectivity along the site. This was looked at by TDOT as well as our traffic folks, and in looking at other projects, they're only looking at about 29 peak hour entering trips and 28 peak hour exiting. So basically 28 cars an hour coming in and out of the site during that peak time. So in looking at the project, we have worked with them on their architecture, and they've made some slight modifications to their normal layout of their project. The one with the smiley face is their primary frontage that we want to present as a front. So we've expanded their canopy a little bit to show that in place. And then they have included, here's their nighttime LED lighting that is a wall wash. That is part of their signature. Normally that would be something that might be considered signage, but here, because it is white and it's a wall wash, it's considered part of their architectural element for the building. With that, we believe that the project is in pretty good order and would recommend that we approve this infill project subject to all staff comments.
So 2 questions. Where is this on Church Street? Can you give me an idea?
So, do you know,
Old fireworks store.
Okay. All right, I know where that is.
Yep.
All right, the smiley face, is that,
that is their logo.
yeah, but is it facing church or
It
no?
is.
Well, it's not in the other pictures you show here.
Yeah,
Why
that's-
don't you get a smiley face?
I didn't see that either.
Yes, so this is one of their older buildings, so the smiley face one is actually their new logo. So it's the smiley face with the cup of coffee. And in working with our sign department, I did determine that on this building, we would only allow signage on 3 sides. Originally, they proposed it on 4 sides. I don't know why they would want it on the back, but so they did reduce that, and then they also couldn't do kind of like, I'll call it menu board signage that's in the building itself, so we've had them remove that as well.
Is the smiley face considered a sign?
It is,
Yeah, okay,
just like a Starbucks logo.
right.
I think I'm getting punked.
You're getting pineapples, you're getting smiley faces.
But no horse.
No horses today. Okay, whatever y'all want to do.
Motion to approve, subject to staff.
We have a motion to approve, subject to staff comments. Do we have a second?
I'm not going to necessarily vote against this, but we got to watch ourselves when we approve, certain logos. I recall us not approving, I can't remember what it was, that was above an awning in I know this is not Medical Center Parkway, that we weren't going to do that. And,
And I'm looking on, I'm sorry, Ken, I'm looking on their website, and that picture is nowhere on their website.
Right, that's what I'm
I mean,
looking at, too.
It's saying their logo is that.
Yeah, I don't see the
The one
smiley
that's
faces
on the
on
dark
building.
colored
Yeah,
one
it
as
says
well?
Scooters Coffee.
Okay.
There's no smiley faces on their website. I don't know if the
Yeah,
applicant's
so,
here.
yeah, right there on that picture, right
That's
there,
what it
that's
is.
the logo on the website, not the smiley face.
But I'm with Ken. We're getting in kind of hot water here, just saying, what's a logo? You can put whatever you want up there.
I think we ought to go with what we're seeing right there on those pictures.
If it's a sign, we don't have jurisdiction.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Did you
normally.
hear Brian's question?
Yeah, normally we have a comment that is on the site plan things that says this is for conceptual, all signage is for conceptual purposes only because we do not review signage. But from an architecture standpoint, especially a building this small, it was primarily a metal building when we started with it. And so now it's predominantly a brick building with a split face CMU on the bottom. So it's definitely come a long way, but if that's something that we could at least share, we really would, why? And they did say that they couldn't attend today, and I said, well, in case they have questions, they could defer the item for clarification.
It's the smiley face.
It's got the smiley face on it.
Is that another store?
I tend to, I mean, if it's a company logo, it's a company logo type thing. I mean, it's not some just jackleg.
Does it have to go on the front, or can we?
So I was just seeing a picture on his phone, building that they built in January that did have that
Yeah,
particular
that's what we're
logo?
looking at.
Okay.
That's what we're looking at.
I guess it's just hard for us. I mean, we're looking at one thing, and there's going to be a different front that we're approving that we can't see.
It's going to be the schematic drawing versus the actual picture we're looking at.
I mean, does it have to go on the front? Can we flip the Scooters coffee drive-through wording to the front, or the logo?
So
Front, or?
I'm sorry, Mr. Carroll.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that the signage is subject to separate regulation under our sign ordinance. And typically, the signage that is shown on the site, on the elevations, is more conceptual at this point, and they go through a separate signage review and permitting process after the fact. And so I think that I don't know how much the review of the elevations and the signage, with the review of the signage, really dovetail, because it is a kind of a separate review. So,
And there's a staff comment that actually says under signage, any signage, be it monument, wall sign, or other, or flagpoles, will require a separate permit through the Building and Codes Department.
So back to Brian's question, it sounds like we don't have the authority to dictate what the sign is.
So our sign ordinance has specific parameters that they must adhere to, and the review of the signage is typically done via an administrative process in our Building and Codes Department. And I think what's shown on here is kind of for illustrative purposes at this point.
And this is zoned light industrial, and we've gotten so used to looking at, it's light industrial, but it's also GDO. And then we get into a whole different thing when we're looking at GDO. We're just so used to commenting on all that we're not used to seeing something we may not really, be authorized to comment on or to. So I think we're, light industrial is what we're looking at here.
If Teresa's listening to this, she knows I'll be calling later.
But I think, our biggest thing is that our only, do we have any other objections or comments or questions regarding the site plan? Because we think we're probably said all we need to say on the signage-related matter.
I have no other issues. I'll second Brian's motion.
Okay. So we do have a motion and a second to approve this site plan. Ms. Fulgham?
Ms. Haverwater?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Prince? Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Chair Jones?
Aye. Okay. Thank y'all very much for helping us through that. Our next item, item D, is the Bass Tire Company, it's Keeneland Commercial Center, Lot 16, site plan for 8,528 square foot tire store on 1.22 acres, zone commercial highway, located along Keeneland Commercial Boulevard, Bass Tire Company, Inc. is the developer. Ms. Smith.
Thank you again, Chair Jones. On the screen above is the site area for the proposed project. You can notice on the site plan on the south side, there is residential dwellings as well as along the easterly frontages. So staff had requested a sound study be done. City does have a noise ordinance, and we wanted to make sure that those standards were being met. And part of the recommendations that came out of that particular report was this particular diagram that shows 6-foot and 9-foot sound walls that are acoustical barriers to end up addressing those issues. Originally, they were looking at having an exterior compressor and 2 large HVAC units that added a lot of extra noise that would have had its own 9-foot enclosure. So since then, they have incorporated the compressors into the building itself, and they have also only have 1 HVAC unit in this location. As staff looked at the analysis of the report, we believe that this 6-foot acoustical wall should be pulled back to the setback line at 42 feet. So that way it provides a little bit more of an opening of a site. So as you're coming in and around, for example, police department at night, you can actually see into the site versus having walls that come all the way to the street frontage. The project itself also has a joint shared driveway between the existing site and the adjacent site that will be constructed as part of the initial project. You'll also notice that the orientation of the openings are actually towards the street, which normally we do not do, but because of the noise concerns, we wanted to make sure that those were facing as far away from the residential uses as possible, as well as the dumpster enclosures located here in the front of the building versus in the back anywhere closer to those residential uses. We are looking at, of course, having various buffers, heavy buffers along the side. A type C buffer is required on these back sections, but these back sections also have existing 6-foot wood fences that are in place between the proposed use and the new use. And what we received today was an update to the fence type because we only had spec sheets previously that were a wood type fence that had various structural bracings. The applicant has looked at having a solid vinyl fence that will meet the city spec as far as anything over 6 feet. Building codes looks at to make sure that the structure will adequately stand. But what staff did want to make sure to do, you can see the building itself, it's a little hard to see here. It has predominantly brick facade with stone accents along the building, and then a cornice on the top that from an architectural standpoint, I believe we've just commented on having some contrasting color for those elements. The other thing we wanted to make sure that was running with the project itself was certain notations. The most important one is that the site will continue to meet noise standards of the City of Murfreesboro at all times. Originally, there was some discussion about exterior tire changes, and so we wanted to, one, make sure that they weren't changing tires out in the front of the business because from a noise standard that would emanate additional noise that would not have been anticipated. And when we're looking at their, a little further, there we go. And so these particular notes, normally you might not see some of these things, but we wanted to, again, make sure that these things are fully aware of because of the sensitivity of the adjacent uses. So with those particular mitigations incorporated into the site itself and making sure that those standards meet the city's policy after it's constructed, before they get their C of O, staff would be comfortable with recommending approval subject to all staff comments for this infill project. And the applicant is here if there's any questions.
So how many parking spaces are required? Is it based upon the Bay Area? Is it
It
based upon the
is.
square? Or
So it's based on, there's supposed to be 2 parking spaces per bay, and so there are 8 bays there, so that's 16, and then there is 1,450 square feet of office space, and that would be 1 per 300 square feet. So they're required 26 spaces, so they've provided 26 plus another 2 handicap spaces, which we don't count in our standards, but they're still required to meet that standard.
we just, if you, I mean, this is a little different to a degree, but we got a lot of garages in Murfreesboro, specifically on Broad, that, they have a lot of vehicles, and sometimes they're overflowing beyond the parking area that the facility has available to it. I just think we need to be careful. I'm not saying that this, well, I better be quiet.
Well, this is, so one of the struggles staff has had is about a year ago, we did change some of our policies relating to various auto uses. And so we wanted to clearly separate what we would call long-term storage of vehicle types of uses, and those we actually refer to as auto repair.
Okay.
And then we have a classification called auto service. And the auto service, at the time, we weren't sure if tires should or should not include, but CH currently has a lot of auto tires, and so that is currently an allowed use as a auto service activity. So that would also cover your Valvolines, Jiffy Lubes, anything that's car maintenance. But here, we do have a noise policy that says, here's your daytime thresholds, here's your nighttime thresholds, and these were the mitigations that were required to meet city's standard.
And we appreciate Mr. Taylor and his client. They were very receptive from the first meeting that we had about having a noise study conducted and putting in place measures to mitigate the noise impact. And so we appreciate them working with us on that, and Ms. Smith taking as much time as she did to make sure that we address that.
I don't know if we have control over what types of commercial buildings, but I'm not a big fan of this just because being in trucking, having worked around, tire trucks very loud, pneumatic, winches, pressure, tires explode every once in a while. And it's right next to those houses. But if it's in their rights to do it, there's nothing to build out there, but
So it is a use permitted by right, but the Planning Commission has the authority from our zoning ordinance to condition approval on measures being put in place to mitigate any negative impacts on adjacent residential uses. So, there's a landscape buffer that's required by ordinance, and what we have asked them to do in submitting that noise study is to the recommendations of the noise study were to put that wall or fence that is proposed in order to further mitigate sound. But certainly the Planning Commission has the authority to put other or require other measures to mitigate any negative impacts on the surrounding neighbors. And Mr. Taylor is here as the design engineer if you need him to address anything.
And so such as like additional landscaping in addition to the fence, and how deep that would be, or maybe a taller fence or a thicker fence, or I don't know what all our options might be.
and I don't see how
Mr. Taylor already has some ideas.
I was thinking hours of operation too, like to your point. I mean, they're out there on a Saturday when actually people are home. Like, I don't know. Are you able to, like?
So I think,
Restrict
if I
them.
can,
Yeah.
I think the city's sound ordinance or noise ordinance, whatever the correct term there is, addresses both hours of day and weekday versus weekend, just similar to construction. And so you're allowed a little louder noise, I think, from 7 to 7, or I forget the exact times. I'm not a noise expert. I looked at the study enough to pull away that the fences are going to mitigate between having the building faced away. We're not going to have any of these operations on the backside, so none of our bays on the backside are open and actually have cars coming in and out. We're going to unload new tires essentially into the building from there, or bring old tires and put them in our storage of the existing building. And so that's really all the back of the building is going to be used for, as an unloading and loading facility. All the doors where the work will actually take place is going to project out toward Kingland Commercial Drive there, and that is exactly why staff had us do that. And I think that's why the sound study actually shows all that work, the noise projecting out that way. I think that's why the site works, because honestly, whenever we first came in, as Mr. Blomley or Ms. Smith said, normally you wouldn't allow all these bay doors to face the public road, and so we had the site oriented so the bay doors were to the side, and they said, look, we would rather the doors face toward the street, project that noise out, because all the work is going to be done inside the building. We've even moved the compressors inside the building instead of being outside to help with those things. And so the gentleman that owns it, I think they stop at like 6 o'clock, because that's normally when I get a phone call from him. And so I think their hours of operation work pretty well with the houses. I don't remember what they work on Saturdays, but I think that those things are all reflected inside of that sound study. And that's an additional measure. I mean, I've been doing this 20 years, and we've never commissioned a sound study before this, and so I think staff was essentially trying to head off and give you those extra tools that the zoning ordinance allows you to project there. And we're using the word fence. It's a special fence. Like, he has to go get this acoustical. It's not the fence that me or you are going to put up in our backyard. It is different. It's meant to not allow the sound to continue along to the other side. So it is more than just a fence. And we'll have our normal landscaping along where those fences are. There we'll continue to have our shade trees and any ornamental shrubs, things like that we'll have in addition. And then, as Ms. Holly said, we've got our buffers on the backside where we do touch the neighbors, and all of them have I think they're all a wooden fence, but I think they all have an existing 6-foot tall wooden fence along their property line too. So there's several mitigation elements to that.
I looked it up, the one in Nashville, same company, they're closed on Saturdays and Sundays, and their hours are 7:30 to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, so.
But are we sure they're going to be that way forever?
Yeah, I don't see how it would pass a sound study. It's 50 decibels restriction during the daytime is a refrigerator or a very quiet conversation, so. And I'm not pro-business as they come, but being here and having I would feel really bad about putting that place near. And I can hear the sound of the tire shop in my mind right now, because I worked inside of a solid brick building, and I had one a quarter-mile away from me, and it was very disturbing. So.
But you could hear it, so when you're inside the building, I can understand, but when you were outside the building?
I mean, I was inside of a totally separate, quarter-mile away brick building.
Quarter-mile away.
And it was disturbing just to even work. So, I mean, number one, I don't think it would pass the sound study. If it did, I'd question the validity of the sound study. But anyways, it's probably a no for me. Just I feel bad putting something like that right next to all these zero lot line houses.
Just to clarify, they have the right by right, correct?
That's right.
I have a major issue with taking property rights away from people.
Well, I don't think we can.
Yeah, so I don't think you
So
can.
that's
I don't
where
think you
we
can
are.
do anything with it. It's already within right.
What a fun place to be.
I'm sympathetic to the people in the zero lot lines, but
Yeah.
there
And
was
so-
a commercial property right beside it that's got a zone that could have something like this go in.
And I think it's been zoned this way for about 20 years or better. I think our first project in Kingland Commercial was in 2004.
I think that was probably late 90s, maybe even.
Yeah.
And this might be the only time I do this ever, but it's just because
I get it.
the PTSD from working next to one for a long time.
I get it. With my comments, I'll make a motion subject to all staff comments.
Motion to what?
Approve.
So we have a motion to approve, subject to all staff comments. Do we have a second?
I'm going to second it. I agree with Mr. Wright. I mean, they had the right to do this. I'm hoping that we are doing everything we can do to mitigate the sound, and I hope that we don't have any issues from a parking perspective, but I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Ms. Fulgham?
Ms. Overwater?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Nay.
Mr. Prince?
No.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Chair Jones?
Aye. Aye. All right, I believe that was 5-2. That passes. So next, we will move on to new business, which this will be to schedule public hearings for December 4th, I believe is the request there. Our first item is a zoning application for approximately 8.17 acres located along Joby Jackson Parkway to be rezoned from heavy industrial to commercial highway. Athena Hospitality Group is the applicant. Ms. Smith?
Thank you, Chair Jones. If you see on the screen, this shows the zoning map and an identified area of 6 parcels. The applicant is actually this particular portion on the very south of the property, wanting to go to CH, which would be similar to this CH. Staff recommended that additional parcels be reviewed so that we're not looking at a spot zoning type of condition. And so we've identified those parcels here. In talking with the seller's realtor, he has talked to other applicants on this road and have gotten an email from a couple of the property owners saying that they would support a zone change for the specific property as well as their own, and that was from the Taco Bell owner, which is constructing at this location, as well as, I think the other ones is the C-Store, which is the gas station, which is...
Convenience store, Taco Bell. One of the other properties on there is owned by the seller that's selling this.
So the seller owns this property here as well on the corner section. And so looking at our long-range planning document, it does show a general commercial type use, or general industrial, use is what it's suggesting, and the complementary zone districts for that are generally light industrial, general industrial, planned industrial, and then other zone districts could be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. So staff did look to our general plan, the most recent one that we did, that talks about some transition policies, giving some flexibility in where those lines line up. But there also is a guiding principle, number 11, that encourages development patterns to provide appropriate transitions and buffering. So that's always a challenge for staff. And so as the information we know about the site is TDOT has purchased the site to the south of this property, which they're having their maintenance facility. And then the other industrial uses, will still remain there, but we want to set the public hearing for the December 4th date to look at the appropriateness, and Planning Commission will need to determine whether or not the request is consistent with our transition policy. So it may need a little bit of homework from you all before that meeting to take a look at what you think is appropriate. So with that, we're asking, do you think it's appropriate to look at those other parcels as a potential rezone, even though they're not part of the applicant, as long as we're getting acceptance by the adjacent property owners owners that they're fine with that change, and it looks like it's consistent with our existing CH zone, the approved uses that are already in place. And then we would send out public hearing notices starting on Friday and would notice this next week for that December 4th meeting.
And Mr. Harney, could you come up to the podium? I know Ms. Smith mentioned that we received a letter from the owner of the Taco Bell and the owner of the convenience store, and you started to say something about the other properties as well. Can you go over that again?
Well, trying to garner these sort of at the 11th hour, but the property, the parcel that fronts Eland Farms Parkway is owned by the same seller as where the hotel is going. Naturally, they're in favor of the rezone. The corner up there belongs to the Onate family. I've tried to reach out to Jose, but he's actually out of the country, and I've talked to two of his family. They bought that with the intentions of building a restaurant on it. Haven't so far, but the other family members said they don't have a problem with it. Reached out to Waffle House, Ken Williams. They sent me an email and said they were not opposed to the use for the hotel. All commercials directly across the street. I even reached out to Amazon, Swan, Barrett Manufacturing, and also NHK. NHK has got the two plants right past where the TDOT Region 3 and the garage is going, and they were all very happy to see a hotel coming out there, because all of them have people either coming for training or visiting, especially Barrett, who's now owned by an Australian company, and they bring people in for sometimes 2 months at a time to do training there. NHK is the same way. Their main facility is in Indiana, but they're sending staff down a month at a time to work at either Dexter or Day. So everyone I've talked to is happy to see a hotel there. A little background, we developed all this park years ago and really had thought these parcels along, by and large, along Joby Jackson, except for the larger parcels, would have a commercial type use. Now, when Key Oil Company came back a few years ago and wanted to buy the back track, this was actually zoned light industrial. It wasn't zoned heavy industrial. But Key Oil Company stores lubricants in big tanks inside the building. They sell to car dealerships, to oil lube places, car manufacturers as well. And by code, because that's flammable, even though all those tanks are inside the building, the ordinance required we rezone that heavy industrial. Staff asked us to just zone that entire side heavy industrial. So it wasn't heavy industrial until Key Oil Company came. Now, Key Oil Company's, all their tanks, by and large, most of their stuff is inside the building. They do have some outside storage behind their building, but that's sort of the previous history of this over a period of time.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the rezoning. I see the need for it. As soon as planning staff pitched it to me, I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I don't think I am interested in studying the other properties at the moment. They're not asking to be rezoned, and I don't know, we've got bigger fish to fry, but I have no problem rezoning this property since they asked for it.
The email I sent out just said, number one, would you support this? And number two, would you oppose your property being rezoned? The
Right.
two immediate property owners next door, of course, they're tickled to death. They think they'll get more business out of it.
Sure.
And Waffle House said, all they said was, we won't oppose, the hotel. That's all the comment they had. Now, the Onates, I have yet to talk to Jose, but I would, I can't speak to him until I have that conversation. But everyone seems to be pleased that a hotel could come out there, because on this end of town.
But were you specifically, were they commenting on whether they were approving or disapproving of their property being rezoned to a commercial highway?
Right now, Ms. Jones, the two immediately adjacent, which is the convenience store and Taco Bell, I passed on their email. They said they are willing to have theirs rezoned. All Waffle House said was, we're not going to oppose the hotel coming out there. I have yet to talk to Mr. Onate. I suspect they wouldn't push back, being on what their intent, always their intended use for that corner has been. But I haven't talked to them yet. But of course, the other lot belongs to the same seller, and on Elam Farms, and they're fine with that. A little side note, 2 years ago, we had a Comfort Inn approved on that side lot. It actually went through site plan, all the approval process. Now, it wasn't near as nice a hotel as this, but it was approved by right in industrial zoning, and we got right down to almost the buyer getting ready to close, and he came down with serious cancer, and we agreed to let him out of the contract. But that Comfort Inn was approved, or went through the process a couple of years ago. This is a much nicer flag hotel than what that was.
And just a clarification, they got a sewer
Thank you, Mr.
allocation variation for that property. We never saw the site plan for that particular hotel, but the one that's highlighted here in blue, we have seen, council has seen the sewer allocation and gave the sewer allocation a couple months back. And the main reason why they're asking for the rezone is an extended stay hotel is not allowed in industrial districts. A regular hotel is, because of the longer stay and period of time. So that's why they're requesting it, and if they just requested it for the single lot without considering the other lots, staff believes it would be spot zoning and would normally require a PID, Planned Industrial District, which really doesn't make much sense for a single parcel because there's not any advantage of circulation, all of those kinds of things. So that's why staff was looking at it from all the way up through this section. So if, there were other extended stay hotels, they would be allowed in a CH zone district. If it stays heavy industrial, they would not. So if another extended stay hotel came here to pick up what council already approved, they could not do an extended stay with their current zoning as well.
Just to build off of what Ms. Smith said, the adding the additional parcels, we were, I guess, trying to create a more legally defensible position if anybody ever challenged it as spot zoning. Whether anything actually is spot zoning, that's not for me to say, it's not for anybody to say except for the courts. So I think we were just trying to put ourselves in a better position for it not to be potentially considered spot zoning.
So if we vote on the whole area, the folks that Mr. Harning hasn't necessarily confirmed, they would have the ability to speak their piece at the public hearing, correct?
Correct. That's why we wanted to make sure everybody was verbally reached out to before they just got a notice in the mail that said, oh, we're looking at changing your zoning for your property, because normally we don't usually operate that way.
So, I mean, we can certainly scale it back, though, if that's what the Planning Commission would like us to do.
And just look at the property that's applying for zoning.
Yes, we can do that if that's what y'all desire.
Okay.
I like that idea.
I mean,
Only one
I'm
property.
I'm just used to always, we look at bigger and we scale back and only, it just, maybe they walk in and say, yeah, I'd much rather have it be commercial highway than heavy industrial, or,
They can apply.
And
Separate.
Mr. Tully may wish to,
all the little, if it's another one, just one down there, it's just, that's definitely spot zoning, one here, one there,
Yeah, can you tell me more about spot zoning? And
I think I would defer to Mr. Tully.
Sure. So spot zoning, as I understand it, is essentially where you're just going one parcel at a time and you have a whole kind of patchwork of zoning rather than having, zones. And so that's certainly disfavored. And so that's the reason why you want to look at a larger area of study to see if the entire area makes sense for the zoning. You don't necessarily have to, I don't believe, approve the zoning for the entire area ultimately, but at least when you're studying it, you want to look at the larger area to avoid that sort of patchwork of having, individual parcels zoned differently.
so there's some legal implication?
Spot zoning is disfavored, certainly. And I would need to do a little bit more research to give you more specific direction on what exactly is and is not allowed, but that's sort of the broad strokes of it. Mr. Malmley, does that comport with your understanding as well?
Yes, I think spot zoning is generally giving one property owner zoning rights that others in the area do not have. And I think planned developments would not constitute spot zoning, but like one parcel zoned a certain way, granting rights that other parcels in the area do not have, could be considered spot zoning. And Mr. Tully can correct me if I'm wrong. When I say that, I think that ultimately that would be up for a court to decide, and not for me to say it is spot zoning or it isn't spot zoning.
I do believe the determination is fairly fact-specific, and so you do have to kind of read the tea leaves of how you think the court will ultimately decide. But
would it be easy enough just to say, all right, we're dealing with just this one, but if you guys want to bring yours in too, we will give you the same rights?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, just deal with it that way. Look, we're only talking about this one, but if you guys that are in this yellow, if y'all come forward, we'll give you the same deal.
What about the
We're
person
not
across the
favoring
street?
Right, or, yeah, we're not favoring anybody. We'll give you the same deal as we're giving these people if you desire to have yours come through.
Mr. Bellamy, how exactly would that work functionally?
They would submit an application, and it would be considered on its merits.
Yeah, so it'd be individual applications.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
Sure.
But we can go ahead and put it out there. That way, there's no argument that we're trying to, take.
I think that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
You're doing the broad study. We'll probably
Yeah.
have the right to just do one of them, but
right.
you're still doing the broad study and giving everybody the opportunity. They say they don't want it, or...
Yeah, that's right.
But
Yeah,
you know.
you could consider that a more restrictive zoning, right? Going from heavy industrial.
It wouldn't allow like a junkyard, it wouldn't allow for, so definitely heavy industrial is our heaviest in district, right? So that was one of the other reasons. And usually when you have landscape buffers, when you change zone district, you have heavier buffers when you have different zone districts as well. And so there are 3 vacant properties that we don't know, how they will develop over time, and that's why we were kind of looking at it from that direction. Again, we normally don't do that for annexation. We do it for like streets, right? Because we might have a gap in a street and we're going to maintain those streets. But this is something that is definitely different than our normal.
But you said this is, the use for commercial highway is consistent with our future land use map and the comprehensive plan, right?
Potentially, not necessarily. So our policy is written, and so I underlined it here, is very broad brushed, and it just says, encourages development patterns that provide appropriate transitions and or buffering between different land use intensities. So when we're looking at this future land use map, it shows it as a general industrial, and it says that the compatible districts are LI, GI, a PID, Planned Industrial District, and then others can be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. So that's very broad brushed. So we have not tested any of the new language, so that's why it's really going to be a planning commission taking that into consideration. And do you think that that is an appropriate meeting of the policies? So the underscored.
If I may make a quick suggestion, I believe part of the analysis for spot zoning is that it's the municipality is not supposed to be zoning to benefit the property owner, but rather the zoning is supposed to serve a public interest. So if there were a public interest served by changing this parcel from the current zoning to the CH, and if the planning commission were to make a finding to that effect, that would probably help. And to that end, if Ms. Smith could, perhaps we could pull up the GIS map and show where the CH zoning is surrounding this parcel, so we could see where other parcels are zoned similarly and whether changing the zoning here would
This is the CH here. That's the only CH adjacent. So it's not contiguous.
But it's not far.
Yeah, but it's like 300 feet if you're taking it all the way up, versus if you're out here, you're closer to 600, 700 feet away. And we did not want to take this one into consideration because that is owned by KOL, who also owns the property here that Mr. Harney just discussed.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let's go to council.
Yes, and and the action today is just scheduling the public hearing. And so if we studied larger, you could always scale back when you vote at the public hearing. So we could either advertise it for the one parcel, or we could advertise it for all 6, and then you could scale back if you wanted to at the public hearing. We're happy to do whatever commission wishes.
And I think the way that the draft notice was drafted was cities just looking at some additional parcels, not necessarily going to zone it. So that way, really, it's just straight, it's talking about.
Yeah, we just kept the notice simple.
Okay.
That it was.
Well, I think scheduling the public hearing gives the legal department some time to review case law.
Right.
And better advise this body and the full council whether or not this is legal. But otherwise, pending its legality, I support it for many reasons. I do think it serves a benefit to the neighboring property owners, especially the ones that have industrial uses, and it does seem appropriate for the area. It's on Joe B. Jackson, which I drove down this weekend for the first time in a while, and it's developing rapidly. A hotel there is not out of place, to be totally honest. So, and Commercial Highway is very nearby. I know it's not contiguous, but it is nearby. So I support it for those reasons, scheduling a public hearing, and I will make a motion to do so.
Second.
Can I ask one more question? Sorry. And I should know the answer to this as long as I've been on this planning commission. But can we rezone a property without the permission of the owner? Okay, then that's all. All right.
That is a right of the city council.
Okay.
Most cities don't do that, but if you have parcels that they say, oh yeah, we'd love to.
Yeah.
Mr. Halliburton, annexation, no. Zoning, yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. I'm sorry, I'm done.
That's okay. That is my motion.
I got one question as well. We're speaking on the blue shaded area, correct?
Inside the yellow marks.
Right.
Yes, that's the applicant came in, and the other area is what staff has suggested, studying for potential zone change.
The next parcel next to it, is it occupied by a business right now?
The one to the south or to the north of the blue?
I would guess
Yellow or white?
yellow.
Above it.
Is that Taco Bell?
So this
Or that's
is
the C-store?
the fuel,
C-store.
yeah.
Taco Bell's next door.
So there you can see. So there's the
Right,
C-store,
yeah.
and then Taco Bell started construction, and then here's the Waffle House.
So, okay. So right now, are we speaking all or just the blue?
All.
All.
But that's not what Jamie's motion is.
And that's what I was trying to
No,
clarify.
it is. It is.
Oh, I'm
Our
sorry.
motion is to schedule this
Okay.
as proposed for
Okay.
public hearing,
All right, I'm sorry.
Including the,
including the yellow area and the blue area.
And the end parcel on the end, it's not vacant, it's empty lot, right?
Both of those look to be vacant, I believe. Is
Yeah,
that
this one's
correct?
vacant, and this
On
one's
Elam
vacant.
Farm Parkway.
the one on the corner is, one of the corner of Joe B. and Elam is owned by a restaurant proprietor. And I think that's the one Mr. Harney was referencing that has intentions to build a restaurant on that parcel in the future. And then the one just to the south of that, with frontage only on Elam Farms Parkway, is where a hotel proprietor had a contract on that property, but then backed out. And then, as Ms. Smith said, the one in the middle that appears to be vacant right now is where a Taco Bell is currently under construction.
Yeah, perhaps those landowners can come to the public hearing and let us know.
I'm not promising I won't want to scale back the zoning. I'm just, if we want to go ahead and advertise all of it.
Well, we can't rezone them anyway without the permissions.
Yes, we can.
Oh, we can.
We just had that conversation. Yeah, we can. I'm not going to.
Annex without permission. but-
We're just looking at
Yeah,
it.
because I mean, these three
Final
already have
decision will
uses,
be
so they
made
don't
at
care.
the
But
public hearing.
that gives Mr. Harney time to see what they want to do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make the motion that we schedule the public hearing for the rezoning of the bulk of these properties and advertise that as such. And we'll see what happens between now and then.
Second.
Great.
Motion and a second. Ms. Fulgham?
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Harris? Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Chair Jones?
Aye. Okay, so we have a December 4th public hearing on that. Then item B is a mandatory referral to consider the abandonment of 2 segments of East Northfield Boulevard right-of-way. Hari and Smith Contractors, Inc. is the applicant. Ms. Smith.
I promise this one's a short one. So as you see...
Yeah, we'll see. We'll just see.
Picture's worth 1,000
Yeah.
words. This one is required to have a public hearing because it is public right-of-way. There are actually 2 driveways on Northfield Boulevard today that exist that enter and access this particular site. Northfield Acres, earlier on your consent calendar, you approved the site plan for that PUD for residential components, which will have different access points. So as part of cleanup on that particular project, we're looking at abandoning these 2 portions as rights of way, and most likely will be maintained as easements because we do have overhead power lines as well as other utilities that are either underground or in aerial form that will stay in those positions with the new project site, but then it would transfer ownership of those properties with the primary residential use for Northfield Acres. Then the engineer is available should you have any questions, but we're looking at a December 4th public hearing date for this one that will bring you a memo back from all of the utilities concerning their facilities in those areas.
All right.
Okay.
Motion to schedule for December 4th.
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Fulton?
Ms. Haberwater?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye. Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Chair Jones?
Aye.
Thank you so much, Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. All right, moving on to staff reports and other business. I'm sure you're going to tell us about some training opportunities.
I am. First, I want to thank Ms. Fulgham for filling in for Ms. Jaco today. We appreciate that.
Hope he's feeling better soon. Thank you, Ms. Fulgham. Appreciate it.
And we do have this Friday, the TAPA Planning Commissioner, Board of Zoning Appeals member, 4-hour training. Great way to knock out all 4 hours that you need, and with the end of the calendar year coming up in a little over a month. So set the registration link for that. If you can, sign up for that. Also, there should be a link to a video coming out for that training if you're unable to participate live. But I would encourage all of y'all to either participate or watch it after the fact so we can stay in good standing with the state. And that's all I have.
Okay. Anything else? All right. If there's no other business, then we stand adjourned. Thank you all.